Okay. Okay, so we are live now. This is connection between Brazil and India. So thank you for joining us. And this is Behold in English. So if you're part of my network, please, I gently invite you to be with us in this English conversation. Today, I am with the co-author of My Cancer is Me and Shakti Leadership, founder director of Shakti Fellowship, co-convener of Truth and Reconciliation Work in Shakti Kambi. When Nilima Bhat, please. Welcome, Nilima. That's so good and an honor to be with you.
Oh, so great to be with you, Eliza. I don't know if you've introduced yourself as a Shakti Fellow and how proud I am of you and your work and the commitment you have made to your own personal growth, even as your professional journey has really taken off, and I have watched it with such joy.
Yeah.
So I'm so proud of you, Eliza, and thank you for doing this thing with me.
Yeah, I think this conversation is part of the journey, and we will talk about it with everyone that is with us. And Rebecca, welcome. She's joining us right now. So when I shared with Nilima, my mentor, about the struggling feelings and emotional impact that I have had regarding my divorce, her answer was an invitation to finally launch this project. This project called Patriarchy Unplugged. This project evokes a candid and crucial conversations to restore gender relations with the healing power of the feminine force. The ShaktiCast is a production created by Nilima Bhat and me, Elisa Rosenthal. And as Nilima just said, I'm graduated in the first cohort of Shakti Fellowship. I'm a writer and founder of the first female institute in the Brazilian real estate market with more than 1,200 women. So welcome, Andrea. And to start this conversation, I'm quote the professor and archaeologist Almudena Hermando, who said once, "The more undervalued and relations, the more undervalued are relations and emotions in social discourse, the more patriarchal the society is." So, Nilima, to start this conversation, the mental health crisis after pandemic, especially, is a reality, and us as women are the highest impacted, especially due to our multiple roles, invisibility, and non-remunerated routine. So, how the balance and embrace the feminine and masculine energies and rescue our woman and society.
Wow. Eliza, even as you were speaking, so many things started falling into place inside my head, and heart. Um, we've been talking about this for years, right? That if the 19th century was about the end of slavery and that kind of oppression, and the 20th century was the end of colonization and totalitarianism, that kind of oppression, then this 21st century is going to be the end of patriarchy and the oppression of the feminine and women, by giving power to all things masculine and giving all decision making to men. Um, it- what we have discovered in our lived experience as we wake up as women and we truly seek to come into balance and harmony with men and claim our voice and claim our equal rights, opportunities, and status, we're beginning to realize that the patriarchy has wounded not just the women by being subjugated and subordinated, but the men are also wounded by having had to dissociate from a half of their being, which is their feminine nature, their capacity to relate, their capacity to feel emotions in a healthy way. Um, all this has kept them as half persons, right? And anyone who denies any aspect of self becomes half a person, or less than a whole person, and that has a price to pay. And the price that the masculine and men have paid by dissociating from all things feminine is a kind of aggressiveness, a kind of heartlessness, a kind of spiritual emptiness, a kind of meaninglessness, right? Where you don't find fulfillment, because fulfillment finally comes in a sense of being in relationship with each other, with the world, a sense of selfless service to something beyond yourself, right? All that gives you a reason to be, because we are not an island. We're not meant to live in isolation and just take the greater share of whatever it is that's going around and make ourselves bigger. That's the strategy of cancer, right?
Yeah.
Whereas every being is like a cell in the body of something greater, and its joy and harmony and fulfillment comes from being in reciprocity with all that greater context it is a part of. And so it became very clear to me that the other thing that became clear to me during COVID is, what if COVID is not a bad thing? What if COVID is somehow the very storm, the perfect storm humanity needs to wake up from this crazy runaway choo choo train that's just headed for disaster and hitting a wall with a planetary crisis? And, what if this is the only way nature knew how to bring us to a halt? And by bringing us to a halt, we are now forced to return to our homes. And then when we return to our homes, we start dealing with what we have been avoiding dealing with in our family constellations, in our relationships. And suddenly, all that unaddressed stuff in interpersonal relationships, within families, within a marriage, has risen up to be looked at, right? Because you are no longer distracted doing other work, going out there earning money or going out there doing other stuff. You have to now face yourself in this silence, because there's nothing to distract you. You have to face your relationships. And I think the women have started discovering that they don't have enough from their relationships, that they have been playing half a person, that they're not having as much intimacy they deserve and want, they're not having as much equality as they deserve and want. They are waking up to the inequality, and having said yes to a broken system and having been complicit in a unequal system, they are waking up to that, as they are now having to look at themselves and their reality, and they're looking to design the life they want, design the life they love. Equally, the men, I think, as the women are waking up, the men are a little lost, because they do not know what their new role is supposed to be in this new reality. And it's hard when the other partner changes the contract on what was a unwritten contract in a relationship. The woman is saying, okay, I'm getting on with my life because I need to find my fulfillment and fulfill my potential before I die. I don't want to die unlived. I have so much more to me than just being wife and mother. And the man has been so socialized in his role as husband and father and provider, which has given him a place of power. But now, if that place of power is no longer something he can stand on, it's hard, because he needs to find a new place of power. And we know that the real place of power is your inner power, your power within, the power that comes from your natural gifts and talents, your sense of life purpose, your core values. That is your true power, not some CEO designation, vice president designation, or money and fame from the outside, because that can get taken away from you, and as it has during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So identity, I think the big thing that's happened during COVID is our sense of identity as a man and as a woman has come up to be really looked at, as if for the first time, because up until then, we were too busy stuffing it and getting on with other stuff, you know? So I'll
Yeah.
pause there. Anything to respond on that, Eliza?
Yeah, and just came to me. I remember when we were during our graduation and certification on the Shakti cohort. We were in the San Diego campus, the San Diego University, and I remember um, changing my lunchtime to be part of a panel that was discussing machismo. and how machismo was so strong, especially in Latin America culture. Right? And I'm part of the Latin America culture. I'm living in Brazil. So how our ancestrality and how the man and the roots that we carry on in the baggage of our family, of our traditions, the things that we just repeat because it's part of the unconscious system that we bring through religion or through some traditions that we keep doing. And what I hear from you is somehow and somewhen the pandemic just put a step back, and we need to rethink about what we are doing, and some of the customs, some of the traditions, some of the behaviors that we had that doesn't make sense anymore. So when you need to stop and rethink about something that was like automatic in our life, as not use mask, or the attention that we should have, or when washing our hands, or other things that we start doing and looking with another prisma and another point of view because of the pandemic, we also need to rethink in this new condition of unplugging the patriarchy that our ancestrality and the machismo that we care. I say we because of the Latino roots, but we need to also rethink what we want to expect from now forward. And as a mom of also a boy, we need to rethink what we are teaching to them, to the next generation. And this is also bring me a question and a point for us. There is a discussion that is happening right now in the comments when the Dr. Udin is bringing the idea of woman. He said the number one enemy of women is women themselves. And so, very wise Andrea said that feminine and woman is not the same. So I want to ask you, Nilima, how we can rethink our roots, our ancestrality, the things that we are doing without thinking, and how some women are still unwaked in this new conception of sorority, of new energy of women that we are talking about.
So there is a lot to unpack here, right? And we have to be very kind because this whole thing is like an onion with many, many, many layers of misalignments. And we have to unpack every layer and put it back into alignment. You know, this is the great work of our time. And I will respond to the comments. And if I don't, please remind me. But let me flow through on what we started with our opening comments. When we dissociate from our core, our wholeness, we experience trauma, because not being whole is a traumatic experience, right? Different people experience trauma differently. And so there is the fight response, saying, I'm going to fight for my survival, which is a masculine tendency, which more men have taken on. Masculinity, femininity exists in both men and women, like the yang energy and the yin energy, what we call the Shiva energy and the Shakti energy. Both exist as elements in all units of creation, men, women, all genders. Okay. But men have been socialized to be more masculine, and therefore their trauma response has been fight, or even dissociate, just disappear and not engage with this emotional, messy stuff, right? It's like a avoidance of emotion. It's a trauma response. So how can we look at these behaviors compassionately rather than judgmentally, right? Because we women have been at the receiving end of this, and so we just get so frustrated, or we're either at the receiving end of the aggression, or we're at the receiving end of the avoidance. Either way, we are left unfulfilled in our need for relatedness with our men, right? Equally, the men have their own issues with women, right? Because the woman's trauma response can be either freeze, she kind of either freezes up, or fawn, right? Where she just gets into a codependence with that person's avoidance or aggression. So she gives her power away to that, and her neediness makes her giving her power away to be able to stay in that relationship, right? So she becomes anxious about saying, oh, how can I get his attention, right? And so even when he's aggressive with her, there's so much domestic violence. But then after the episode is over, the goodness in the man feels really bad about what he's done. And he comes back to the woman and says, I'm really, really sorry. Please come back to me. And the goodness in her wants to keep at the marriage and the relationship. And she goes back, but it's his aggression or avoidance and then her anxiety which are codependent with each other. So she keeps giving her power away instead of asserting her boundaries and becoming her own beloved, her own mother, caretaking herself, and then coming from a place of wholeness in that relationship and relatedness. She comes from a place of incompletion, so they end up in a very unhealthy codependent pattern, which keeps each one of them less than who they can be. The real work is for each one to grow into their wholeness. But that'll require some amount of distance and separation from each other, so each one can grow into their wholeness. And then from that place of wholeness, if there is any real joy and work to be done together for the greater good, they find a partnership, right? Which is not coming from codependence, but from interdependence, from a kind of interindependence, wanting to be more for the world together, but not having lost their own identity and individuality and their own wholeness, right? So this is the great work of our time. And when someone mentioned, well, coming back to the book, in Shakti Leadership, we interviewed Lynn Twist,
Yes.
and she's the founder of the Hunger Project and co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance. And her mentor said something wonderful to her. He said, the great work of our time is two things. One is to hospice the old ways, old systems that no longer serve us, that are actually dying. And they need to be gently witnessed and compassionately held so that they can die and move on. And the great other work of our time is to midwife the new, which is there's a new way, a new world, new systems waiting to be born. And they have their own intelligence. They're coming from life's own intelligence. We don't have to structure them and strategize them. Our job is to witness them and allow them to be born and midwife their birth, right? Hold space for their emergence. So, if we were to bring that down to this conversation, and I think in a way, this is the core conversation that underlies all other big conflict conversations at this time. The great work of our time is to hospice the patriarchy and to midwife synarchy, right? What is synarchy? Before that, what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is a system in which men are given power over everything, right?
Yeah.
Mid decision making, including nature and other creatures, women, children, etc. What is synarchy? Synarchy is where every unit in the system holds its own power, its own leadership, but offers that in service of a greater synchrony, a greater symphony. So it's as if we understand there is a oneness to all things. We are a part of a whole, but in that we hold our integrity and we play the best version of that, right? And we play that from our freedom, but we play that in service to the whole. And then there is music, there is symphony instead of cacophony, right? There is symphony. So the great work of our time is to leave the patriarchy, watch it, hospice it, do that compassionate act, because we know not only have the men been wounded by the patriarchy, women too have started becoming patriarchal and abusive of themselves and each other, because it's become a power game, a power over game, right? Because
Mhm.
those were the rules of that game. When we move into synarchy, the great work is to now do the work of creating new systems of collaboration, new ways of reciprocity, innovate the new economy, innovate a more inclusive way of exchanging value so that everybody matters and everyone wins, right? A world that works for all. This is the great work of our time, right? I'm so excited, and therefore we call this Shakti Cast. First of all, we call the podcast a Shakti Cast, and we'll explain why shortly. But we call it Patriarchy Unplugged as a nod to a wonderful book written by Lucia Rene called unplugging from the patriarchy. She's one of the women who's spoken on this subject for a long while now. Um, and the other thing is, in these kinds of studio conversations, the word unplugged means no more enhancement and tweaking of the sound to make it better, and kind of um, mechanizing what was the authentic raw output. So unplugged here in this ShaktiCast means we're just going to be raw and vulnerable and authentic, and we're not going to kind of soften it, sharpen it, tweak it, um, enhance it in any way. This is it. This is real, and we're going to show up with what's real from a presence, from a place of presence. So we're not here to spit venom and spew anger. If it comes up, we will hold it compassionately, knowing that it belongs to everyone, and those of us who are more healed, can do the work of digesting and integrating these energies for the whole. So I'll stop there, Eliza.
Yeah, I think that you answered beautifully the question. And also, I would like to share my vulnerability. First of all, doing this in English, this is not my place of being so comfortable, of course. And also for the first time talking about my divorce and the things that I've been passing through this past year. And you said something about when you suffer violence, and could be physical violence or psychology violence, um, there is this place that you need to reconnect with the other person. And when I brought the idea of machismo and the idea of ancestrality and our roots, um, there's something that also is still holding us in some kind of reference that we need to ask ourselves what we want to continue with. And I will quote a rabbin this is Brazilian, very known rabbin called Newton Bonder. He wrote many books about the Kabbalah. And he said that without betraying the tradition, we won't keep the tradition. Because to have the tradition doing to the evolution of the time and the needs that the civilization have during the evolution of the time, we need to break the tradition sometimes and rethink about the tradition. So when I decide that my marriage was no longer available, I should broke my tradition in my roots, in my religion. So sometimes this is this so difficult situation when we should break some traditions. And when you say that we are unplugging patriarchy, we are also kind of breaking a tradition of a civilization that is still dealing in a relationship of command and control. So how we shift of this command and control relationship to a new relationship, this win-win relationship that we discuss so many times in our group. And here we are talking also for the LinkedIn audience. This is a very corporative networking space. There is not so familiar with this relationship of a win-win relationship, a relation in the corporative environment, especially.
So you've touched on the work Shakti Leadership is doing in companies with women leading organizations. So this conversation that we're having doesn't just refer to our love life and our relationships at home. It refers to all relationships everywhere, and certainly at work too. So the patriarchy as a system is the context in which everything exists, including business, including work, and how we are structured in organizations. They're very hierarchical. Only now people are talking about more flat organizations, more circular organizations. These are all very new narratives that are coming on the scene. But it's time, because the old model is not working anymore. So people, that's the good news. When something is working for you, you don't want to change. Therefore, you need a crisis and you need a failure of some kind. And if businesses are failing, they're trying everything in the old ways and that's not working, then finally they think, okay, what else is out there that we could look at? And this is where the feminine model is making itself available. So, my co author on the book Shakti Leadership is our beloved Professor Raj Sisodia, who is the co founder of the Conscious Capitalism movement. He's written the book Conscious Capitalism with John Mackey of Whole Foods. He's written the book Forms of Endearment. He's written Everybody Matters. Um, so he's a very interesting case, and maybe I'll answer your question from his story. His own memoir is coming out soon. It's called Awaken. And it's so beautiful how nothing in our life happens by chance or is an accident. We are each the change makers we are meant to be through the life that we have been given. And we have been given the perfect set of challenges to then find our purpose and then bring the change to that world. So Raj's background is that he came from this extremely patriarchal community of India called Rajputs. They're the warriors, they took all the invasions as people, other hordes of other invaders came into India. The Rajputs took the hit first, and they were the men who went to war and had to kill and be killed, and their women were raped, or their women then preferred to go into the fire and kill themselves rather than be violated by the invaders. So these people carry a huge amount of trauma, and therefore the patriarchy is very strong in them. It's all about masculinity and strength and fighting to protect yourself and your people and your women. But in the process, now the days of war are over. They don't need to have that militancy in their blood anymore, but it's still there. It's still running the show. So it now enters how they manage their families. They're very feudal, and all kinds of, and because of the loss of the feminine, in order to become so masculine in their need to protect themselves, the loss of the feminine has created a huge amount of mental health issues and dysfunctional behaviors.
Yeah.
There is abuse, there is, oh my gosh, there is just horrible, horrible stuff, which you will read about it in his book coming up, Awaken. And I think that's what woke him up to say there must be a better way. Because when he came to become a professor of marketing, and then he discovered conscious capitalism tenets through companies who do good and elevate humanity through business, that's when he discovered that, in the world of business, it need not be a dog eat dog world, because he came from his own patriarchal experience and the trauma of it. He had this deep desire for goodness, for inclusion, for win-win, for nurturing, for healing. So he even wrote the book Healing Organizations,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
I'm calling out all these books if our listeners want to read these books, because the patriarchy is embedded, whether we know it or not, through the command and control model in our business world, in our work life. And it's not working anymore. So we have to bring more feminine values and behaviors in a healthy way to collaborate with healthy masculine values and behaviors. So focus on the task, get it done, find the right kind of work, make sure that how you make your money matters. You're not destroying other things in the process. So get your tasks done. But in the process, make sure your relationships are being nurtured and taken along. You're including everyone in your growth. Everyone wins when you grow, right? That perfect balance of the right task with the inclusive relationships is what the world of business needs as a mantra, right? And then you're going to find equality. So, very naturally, because things are not working in this broken business model, people are now making diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging a hot new topic. People are making women in leadership a hot new topic, saying everyone's beginning to realize that feminine values and behaviors such as nurturing, caring, sharing, inclusion, collaboration, empathy, compassion, kindness, right? Creativity, juiciness, all these things are needed in our culture at work.
Yeah.
And it is what is missing. And because of that, it's become hyper masculine and toxic. But if we dial up these healthy feminine behaviors by measuring them, by actively asking for them and rewarding them, then we will restore balance to the cultures at work. And we will have less burnout. less attrition, and less disengagement.
Yeah,
Right? The three big
especially
problems in the
nowadays.
workplace today are attrition, disengagement, and burnout. And
Yeah,
if you diagnose through the lens of masculine and feminine, right there, it's a sign of too much masculine energy, too little feminine energy. And in the Chinese medicine model, it's simply about dialing up and dialing down to restore balance. Too much yang energy, too little yin energy, dial up the yin, dial down the yang, and you are back into balance.
perfect. That's a quote that I heard for someone. I don't remember who said that. This, but it says, um, you don't need to compete with me because I also want you to be a winner.
Yes.
So yeah, this is part of this new way of thinking, and also I think this also responds the discussion that we are having now in the chat. So how can we be part of it, and what's the role of men during this transformation?
Yeah. So, first of all, this is a huge embrace of all men. Okay. I have so much compassion for the men in our society, the men in my life. I love each one of them. I see their wounds just as I see mine. And it's like neither friend nor foe, all alike, are each other's teachers. How can we walk together? Because our destinies are deeply intertwined with each other, right? No one wins until all of us win. So the men are invited to do their own work of embracing the feminine values and behaviors and know that it is okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel your heart. It's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to work at relatedness. That's what the women in your life yearn for, So asking the men to step up and find the courage. They have courage. That's one of the masculine qualities. So use that courage to become more capable of compassion and feeling of your emotions and not fearing them. So emotional intelligence is work to be done, just like women need to do the work of finding their voice and speaking their truth. Men need to do the work of raising their emotional intelligence. And the other is to support the women in their life, seeing and understanding that they too are whole persons and they too are sovereign beings and they too need to be supported to come into their own power. And when women come into their own power, it doesn't make the men less.
Yeah.
It's not a zero sum game. There is enough to go around. And when women come into their own power, their innate nature from a place of health, from a place of fulfillment and freedom, is to be nurturing and giving and taking care of everybody. So, as we say in Shakti, take care of your Shakti, and Shakti takes care of all the rest. So, if we take care of our feminine energy, which is Shakti, then that beautiful, nurturing, mothering energy has the capacity to nurture all life, including the men. So there is I'm telling the men, go ahead and nurture the women in your life and hold them up and validate them and make them become their own voices and their own sovereign beings, their own Reginas. Because it's like you will invest $10 and you will get back 1 million. you know you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. The world will be a
Yeah.
happier, better place when the women in your life are happy and blooming.
Yeah, definitely. And Andrea is requesting here if you can talk a little bit more about healthy and unhealthy traits.
So healthy masculine is direction and focus and getting jobs done and courage and the ability to fight the good fight, right? That is the healthy masculine, that healthy warrior energy that protects. The unhealthy masculine, when it doesn't have balance with the feminine, it becomes toxic or hyper. Then it is aggression, it is spiritual emptiness, it is um, violence, right? That is the kind of unhealthy masculine. Selfishness. The healthy feminine is compassion and kindness and inclusion and collaboration and sharing and caring and empathy. But the unhealthy feminine is manipulation, fighting these subtle, power games behind the scenes, um, controlling like a helicopter mom, wanting to, take charge of her children and really not letting them grow on their own. um, Neediness, feeling always emotionally needy and kind of therefore making the people in her life feel very beholden to her and get depleted by her neediness, right? So these are not just her, the feminine is in both men and women. So these are some of the unhealthy feminine behaviors: neediness, being over emotional, being oversensitive, taking things too personally. um, these are some of the unhealthy feminine. And we have, if we create the four quadrants, and you can find that polarity map that I have offered online, it's on our YouTube channel, the masculine and feminine polarity map through the work of Barry Johnson. You get to see there are healthy feminine and masculine behaviors, but there are unhealthy feminine and masculine behaviors as well. And the great work of our time is to move across from unhealthy feminine to healthy masculine, and unhealthy masculine to healthy feminine, and be in this inhale and exhale between healthy feminine, healthy masculine. For me, the simplest way to remember to be in a place of balance between both is self care, which is a healthy masculine quality, and compassion for others, which is a healthy feminine. So, as long as I'm in that balance of caring for myself and my boundaries and asserting them in a compassionate but firm way, I'm and then compassionately being available to others, being sensitive to their needs and feelings, and not judging them, then I'm in a healthy feminine place. So between self-care and compassion, if I can inhale and exhale from a place of presence where I have nothing to defend, fear, or promote, but I can just be here now, then I'm showing up as a conscious leader who can hold the whole, and as others are going through their process and their journey, I can hold space for them compassionately without losing myself, right? It's all about that healthy balance.
Beautiful. And once you were bringing this part of the concepts of Shakti leadership, I think this is a good moment for you to share with the network that is here with us about the fellowship and the
Yeah.
cohort and this beautiful program that you hold.
So this whole vision is, how do we change the world? You change the world through change makers, individuals who create change, one life at a time, one relationship at a time, one marriage at a time, one family at a time, one business at a time, right? So I said, okay, let's create change makers through a fellowship program, bringing women into, because women are underserved in leadership. We need more women in leadership. So Shakti leadership is for all men and women, all genders. But for this one particular program, I focus on women as well. So saying, let's bring women up in this model of balanced, conscious, integrated leadership. And how do we connect them to each other so that each one finds her true purpose, and in seeking to manifest that, she gets the support of her cohort, of her community, of her tribe, and these are women around the world, right? So through University of San Diego's Conscious Leadership Academy, we have been running the Shakti Fellowship, a 9-month program, where they do the work of stepping into inner transformation, stepping up, learning leadership skills, where we partner with Tiara, and then stepping out to find their game changing idea and then launching it in the world within those 9 months, and then taking it forward. And then they're connected to each other, so they start networking. So over the years, we have in 3 cohorts had 51 women from 13 countries. But Shakti Leadership is also now co-curriculum of Skolkovo in Russia. And there are about 90 women who have graduated that course. Then we have recently started in Tec de Monterrey in Mexico, and 20 women have graduated the Women Leading Organizations course with Shakti curriculum. So suddenly this group is growing. We also have online group self-study programs. If people can't afford the time or the money to come for the fellowship programs, they can just do the self-study 12-module online course and get certified as a Shakti leader. So you can find all this on our website, www.shaktileadership.com. And once you get certified as a Shakti leader, then you become part of our network, and the connections begin, the magic begins. The power of Shakti finds other aligned energies. And as maybe you can talk about how you experienced the fellowship, your own growth, but then the network that came out of it.
Yeah, that this is such amazing network, and we have Rebecca here chatting with us, and Andrea, part of this fellowship. This is a worldwide connection web of fellows that create this amazing change makers tribe. And how many women that you have changed it already? What's the size of the fellowship?
We need to do the numbers. Count 51 plus 90 plus 20.
Wow,
that's
so more than 100. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
already we have 160, but over and above that, through the shorter programs and the online course, I haven't even added that yet. So there's plenty of us, and as they say, you don't need too many people to change the world. You just need the right critical mass, and the rest will get changed.
Yeah.
So yes, it's already happening.
For my experience, I think more than having the right answers, I had the right question, and that's the question that you made to me in Croatia when I complete my course and presented my project, and this is my former podcast, and was everything fine until you asked me what I should do with the real estate market. So when I decided to come back of my graduation and look to the market that I was part of, trying to leave, trying to rethink my career, try to transition of working with other fields. So I just realized that I should be the change maker in my market. So that when I founded this first female group in the real estate market, that we are more than 1,200 women in the real estate market in Brazil. So this is part of the transformation. So if there is this group right now, this institute called Mulheres do Imobiliário, or Women in Real Estate in Brazil, this is also a part of the Shakti Fellowship. So this is the result also about thinking in a different way when you see something that we want to change. And I was not able to be the change maker that I am right now without the Shakti Fellowship. So you know how honored and how grateful I am of you and this fellowship, but I think it's very important to pass the message forward for those that are also uncomfortable with some realities and can find this space for being a change maker in their space. That so this is a very important message that I would love to share. Yeah, Andrea is talking about the yeah, we are creating this powerful garden.
So there is a huge lawnmower outside, and I can't hear you.
Wow.
Maybe maybe it's a sign that we come to a close for our podcast today.
Yeah.
Unless you want to hear some of the comments, is it possible for others to join or no?
We have a lot of comments right now, but it's part of comments around the conversation. No more questions. I think there was a great start, and we should invite who there was listening to us and will listen to us to keep following the next conversations that we're gonna be holding by this space. So I appreciate. Thank you very much.